Okay, so what's going to make today different is we're solving quadratic equations that are not written in standard form. All the ones from the last 2 days were in standard form. If a quadratic equation is not in standard form, we need to get it equal to 0 first. So in order to use the zero product property to solve a quadratic equation, it needs to be set equal to 0. So if you look at number 1 has an equals negative 11 instead of an equals 0. So first thing we're going to have to do is add 11 onto both sides to get it set equal to 0. After that step, this is going to be exactly like all the problems that we were doing the last 2 days. So first you now, after you have it in standard form, have to determine which method of factoring you're going to use. That you guys seemed good on yesterday. So you knew that this is add multiply. What you didn't know is how to get the correct factors. So since there's no number in front of x squared, we do not have to split the middle. We can go straight to our two factors, both beginning with x, and then we have to find the proper two numbers that multiply to positive 30, add to negative 11. So you don't have to, but you can reach out to the calculator for all the factors of 30. So I put 30 divided by x. That creates a table of values. Table of values will go from negative 20 to 20. Of all numbers that'll multiply to 30. So we need to find the one that'll multiply to positive 30. So on the top of the table, you see that you have two negative numbers because that'll multiply to a positive 30. On the bottom, it's going to be two positive numbers. Well, now thinking ahead, which I hadn't earlier, I could say to myself, well, I need them to add to negative 11. So would it be two negative numbers or two positive numbers? It's going to be two negative numbers. So looking, I see negative 15 and negative 2 multiply to positive 30, but don't add to negative 11. Keep going down the table. Negative 10 and negative 3, another pair of integral coordinates. Negative 10 and negative 3 multiply to positive 30. Don't add to negative 11. Keep scrolling down. I see negative 6 and negative 5. Multiplies to positive 30 and adds to negative 11. Check. If you don't realize, say to yourself, everything in that table is going to multiply to 30, but does negative 6 plus negative 5 add to negative 11? It does. So if you're putting in numbers that do not, all you have to do is check yourself, and you shouldn't be able to put the wrong numbers in. So those are my factors, x minus 6 times x minus 5. Then the zero product property, where we split it into two separate equations, setting each factor equal to 0. You guys did very well on these steps. Adding 6 to both sides, in this case, giving me x equals 6, adding 5 on this side, and getting x equals 5. I prefer you not to put the solutions in solution set notation that make an error in that step. So if you made any errors putting it in solution set notation that I wrote about, just leave it. X equals 6, x equals 5, you're done. Okay, now here. Not set equal to 0, so it's the first thing you should recognize. My first step is going to be to get it set equal to 0 by minusing 12 on both sides. Notice there's no other constant on the other side of the equation. So I put negative 12 below the positive 5x, but I'm not going to be able to combine those two terms. The 2x squared is going to come down, the positive 5x is going to come down, minus 12 is going to come down, and it's set equal to 0. So in the first equation, when I added 11 to both sides, I had like terms that I was able to combine. For number 2, when I minus 12, there was no like term to combine it with, so it just came an extra term. You need to make sure you always put the squared term in the front, a term that just has x in the middle, and then the constant at the end. So their standard form is always going to look like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's your standard form. Okay, now is determining which method that we're going to use to factor once we have it set equal to 0. So you guys were good realizing that if there's a number in front of the x squared, we're going to use split the middle. But some of you forgot to multiply that first number with that last number to get the multiply number. They have to multiply to negative 24. I'm not going to use the table anymore, but if you have questions about that, please text me. So when I multiply, I get negative 24, and they have to add to 5. So I'm going to make my table. And when you go into the calculator, you would put negative 24 divided by x. So you're going to have one negative number and one positive number. First, I'm just going to put the combinations I could think of. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. If you're looking in the calculator, though, either all the x values are going to be negative or all the y values are going to be negative. I know that they have to add to positive 5, so I know I want my bigger number positive. So I'm going to make all my negatives the smaller numbers. So now looking through, I find my pair that adds a 5. If you accidentally had the 8 negative and the 3 positive, that would add to negative 5 when you checked it. So you would know that that's not the correct two numbers to split the middle with. So negative 3 and positive 8. So the 2x squared comes down, and you guys were good with splitting the middle. It's just you didn't have the right numbers, and then you're going to have the wrong answer. So all the splitting the middle did right now is replace that positive 5x with the negative 3x plus 8x, which is equivalent. Negative 3x plus 8x is 5x. It also has the two numbers that'll multiply to that multiply number we got up here, the negative 24. Now, when I factor, some of you get confused with this step. And a lot of you are writing the correct thing to divide them both by. You're dividing both of these terms by x. But then you have to remember that that's what goes in front of the parentheses, that x. 2x squared divided by x is 2x. Negative 3 divided by x is minus 3. Bring down that sign in the middle. What could I divide both of these terms by? 4. So a 4 is going to go in the front. 8x divided by 4 is 2x. Minus 12 divided by 4. Some of you had numbers that didn't even divide, which means that's not a common factor. That wouldn't be the number you're taking out. Start over. 12 divided by 4 gives you 3. Now you know at this point, if you're on the right track, if you have the same numbers here and here, the same factors in the parentheses, and that's your next line, is to write that 2x minus 3, and then the x plus 4. Equals 0. Split it into the two equations using the zero product property. Either 2x minus 3 is equal to 0 or x plus 4 is equal to 0. Sorry, my pen just stopped working, just like it would in class. My 2... Let's see if it works now. No.